What are your thoughts ahead of it? I think you think this squad's done very well to get to this point, don't you?
We are delighted with them. We think they've been absolutely outstanding. We set them targets at the start of the year. I think what we need to go back to is what we did by design. Yeah. So all the research suggests that we give players struggle, or any elite athlete struggle. As a consequence of that, they'll come out the other end and be much better equipped athletes to play at an elite level. So what we decided to do was get rid of a lot of the older players who traditionally would have stayed in a Rangers under-20s group and competed for trophies and medals. And the average age this year of the group's been 17 and a half. So we didn't really expect them, if I'm perfectly honest, to get to the Youth Cup final. But if we look at the results, I think they beat Hearts 5-2, Falkirk 5-1 and Kilmarnock 4-1. So they've been outstanding. And I think almost all the players can play again next year. The number can play for 2 years and a further lot can play for 3 years. So for them to reach the final, they have surpassed our expectations. And what we now need to do is make sure that every year they keep getting a challenge in the same way they have this year.
Do you feel by making the group younger, you've increased the competitiveness of it for them as a squad as such?
Yeah, well, if you look at the statistics, we do it by quartile. So the first quarter of the year, they really struggled in the Development League. And the second quarter probably struggled the same, but from about just before halfway through the year, the results, I think their last 14 league games in the Development League, they won 10 games. Now that form would see them win the league if they'd be able to do that consistently over the course of the year. So we are about producing winners, but in order to give them, or in order for them to become winners, they must have that struggle first and foremost. Now, if I'm honest, we didn't expect them, because we've got boys at 15, 16, 17 playing against men at 27, 28. We didn't expect them to come round this quickly and get the gains that they have in terms of their development so quickly. So we're absolutely delighted, in the fact that they're in a final is testimony to the work that they've done, but also the work that Graham and David and Colin and the guys that are working with the group, and they've been fantastic as well.
How important is it that people don't forget that that isn't necessarily a complete 20 squad, because you've got so many of them out on loan as well at the moment? Yeah,
I mean, I think probably the average age of the group is under 18, so it's effectively taking an under 18 team and putting it into an under 20 competition. Now for Rangers that's completely different, it's a complete change in strategy, but again I've spoken about it before, if you look at Southampton and Spurs and places like that, it's what they do time and time again, and as a consequence they produce players. So in terms of the loan players, I mean, Ryan Hardy and Jordan Thompson, they're both eligible under 20 players. They won't play with us in the cup final. They'll be playing for Hibs against Raith Rovers, against Hibs for Raith Rovers, trying to stay in the Championship. Now that experience of fighting at the bottom of the league is invaluable for them and will help them hopefully become Rangers players.
Obviously Miles Beeman's made the step up recently, but I've spoken to a lot of the under-17s, under-20s recently, and they said that they've seen such a boost amongst themselves about how much Pedro Caixinha is involving their age groups. Have you noticed that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. You can sense it. I mean, I think from when the manager first came in, he took 5 or 6 players round on the first day. So I think we've had something like 13 or 14 players that have now trained with the first team who maybe hadn't previously since the manager came in. So that's great. But I think for Miles, we brought Miles from Manchester City, and I think people think that the academy is about just developing talent in terms of coaching and education and everything else. It's also about recruitment, and it's about us making sure we're recruiting the best young players, not just from Scotland but beyond, bringing them into our environment, developing them, and we speak about adding value all the time, adding value and getting them towards the first team. Now Miles has been a great example of that, and I think for the rest of the players, we've got to remember he's only just turned 18. Yeah. So we look at other players that are playing at first team level that people regard as young players. They're 19, they're 20, they're 21. We need to make sure in 2 years' time Miles is a really strong athlete that's competing every week at first team level, but for the rest of them it gives them real aspiration to go and achieve that.
When you're watching Miles as head of academy as well, is it quite special for you that he's not just gone and done well in terms of footballing, he's gone and done the press, he's gone and done the media, and kind of shown that what you're producing is a rounded individual, not just a footballer, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think as you know, it's not by chance, because we do the media training with the kids. We're talking about their diet, we talk about how they recover. Miles was funny, after he made his debut at Kilmarnock, he came in the next day and he looked really tired. And I thought, was that just because he was not sleeping because of the crowd? He's made his debut, it's great. And of course, we spoke to him about, is it about his social media? Was he up reading all the stuff that was out there that night? But it's important because this is the environment these young players live in. So the work that Craig Robertson and Katie Lamont do and Greg Stark, the team around there looking after them off the pitch, is every bit as important as what Graham and the guys do on the pitch. And I think for Miles, he's demonstrated so far that he's able to go and cope with the demands of first team football. We need to make sure over the next 18 months as part of this project, we've got many, many more players that can go and do that.
Can you see that happening?
Yeah, no doubt. I think the frustration for us is that we see the work that's going on here on a daily basis, and we're going to invite a lot of supporters in to come and look at what we do. I think that's important that we do that, because until we get the outputs in the first team, people often say, what is it you're doing, where are the outputs coming? And also, the likes of the Glasgow Cup last week can skew what we do, because the Glasgow Cup was a poor result for us. We thought they would do better than that, but we know there's good players in there and we don't judge them over one game. So if we take a boy like Zach Ridden, who played in the Glasgow Cup game, Zach's only just turned 17. He's now played, I think, 20 odd under 20s matches this year. He's scored 15 or 16 goals. So he's in a much better place in his development than we would have been under the strategy that was getting deployed previously. So we see the changes happening, but over the next 12 to 18 months, we'll hopefully see players in the first team that will back up what we know is going on a daily basis.